Hi, my name is Candace and I am a senior music education major at the University of Oklahoma. This is going to be a complete guide on pretty much everything you need to know before coming here or deciding to come here. These types of videos really helped me with my decision for grad school, so I hope that this can be helpful for you as well. The first thing I want to talk about is the campus and the facilities, because that is honestly one of my favorite parts of OU. So the music building is called Catlit, and I'll put some pictures on the screen. But honestly, I think it's gorgeous and very artistic. While a lot of music buildings that I have come across America whenever I travel, sometimes they are either like super modern and not really my vibe, or they're like actually depressing. So I think Catlit is definitely up there. The performance halls are Gothic Hall, which is the lobby area. That one is more of like an organ performance hall because it has the organ like on top, which is super cool because when you walk in, there's oftentimes an organ student doing a lesson or just practicing. There is the recital hall, Pittman, which is honestly quite nice. The acoustics are not too bad. And then there's the large hall, Sharp, which I think is not the most grand and impressive hall I've ever seen, but I think the acoustics are nice and it does the job. There's also another hall that's in a separate building where the music building used to be, or what the old music building was, is used for like operas and maybe a few other concerts. That is like 10 times cooler than Sharp Hall. I wish I got to use it more, but yeah, I'll put some pictures of that as well. The actual music building, like the classrooms and stuff, pretty clean, like not dreary, honestly, like a lot of universities I've seen. One thing to note, the practice rooms are not in the building. They're actually across the street in a separate building, which was really a pain at first. I just didn't like having to do that walk. It's only like a 2-minute walk. But honestly, I kind of enjoy that because it forces you to like touch grass and then actually kind of get into a different headspace because you're literally getting into a different building. And the actual practice room building is quite nice. It's secure with like phone IDs and all that. And the practice rooms are generally clean and well kept. They have little air conditioning things that you can adjust that sometimes work. And they mostly have windows where you can see this nice statue figure outside. So I'm an enjoyer of the practice rooms. People have complained about not getting practice rooms at a certain time of the day. Honestly, in my 4 years here, I have only not gone to practice room once. And I just practiced outside. So it's not really something that I would complain about. As far as the overall campus, I think that the OU campus is one of the most gorgeous campuses I've ever been on. It's flat, which is kind of lame, but the actual buildings are very pretty. And I just overall like the architecture, and it's just super nice to walk through. If you're a music student, you won't really be walking through much. You might have one class outside of the music building, but it's super nice, and especially whenever the leaves are green and all the flowers are blooming and all that. But yeah. Next is the classes that you will take. If you are a music major, regardless of education, performance, whatever, you will take music theory and aural skills, which are kind of paired together. Aural skills is more of the listening skills and singing, and music theory is everything else, as well as music history and culture classes. Now, the aural skills are typically taught by the music theory GAs. So master students, doctorate students, like piano, sometimes they're just piano GAs, but not necessarily aural skills specific people. So sometimes the classes can be a bit on and off. Typically the students are like really well meaning and they try their best to relate their information, their curriculum of the aural skills class to the music theory class, but it's definitely a time, aural skills is. Music theory is more of the whole, like everyone is shoved into a big rehearsal hall. And so there's pretty much every music major of that class has to take at the same time. You're broken off into different sections. So you have a different GA, which is your aural skills teacher, but you are all in the same class. Honestly, I don't think the music theory classes are that hard. If you are really good at paying attention and understanding things like geometry, so like applying different rules to different scenarios, you will be fine. I think the hardest music theory class is probably theory 3, 2 or 3, probably because there's just a lot of exceptions to the rules, and you just have to be very good at, again, like knowing what scenario to use what rule and how to apply it. The culture classes and the history classes are just what it sounds like. So they're actually quite interesting, especially because it's about music. So hopefully you're a little bit more interested in that than maybe American history. We have quite a few like really good teachers in this department. So honestly, I had a good time. Lots of writing, of course, but the good news about those classes is you will be done with them by pretty much your junior year. So freshman, sophomore year, you got to deal with them, as well as your core classes. I did not take core classes such as like math, English, all those like science classes, because I did all of them in high school as concurrent classes. So I took a neighborhood community college classes to get the credits. But just be aware, you will also have to take core classes if you did not do that, or if you didn't do AP classes. As far as the music side, music education side, sorry, we have to take extra classes. So music, it's called like teaching techniques. Yeah, teaching techniques class, where we literally teach each other, or we're sent out to neighboring schools where we observe or teach the students. And we have conducting classes as well. We have also general education classes that every education major at OU has to take. These classes are like motivation and classroom management, understanding the needs of students with IEPs or special needs, assessment. Like they're just overarching classes that are not super relevant to music sometimes, but like they're fine. You'll live. The ensembles. So first I'll talk about the pride of Oklahoma, which is the marching band. This ensemble is so much fun, and it is a very high quality marching band. The only con that I will say is it is a lot of time. It's like over 20 hours a week, especially on game day weeks. So it is so hard to have a job at the same time. I honestly don't know how some people did it. I taught private lessons, so I could kind of work around it, but generally every evening you have a rehearsal, except for Tuesdays. And then Saturdays, your game days last all day long, and then Sundays you're just pooped out, like, because game days are so exhausting. So I couldn't do anything on Sundays. But the Pride is honestly a great experience for meeting people and learning about how to run a tight ship, because the director of the Pride, Brian Britt, he knows what he's doing. As far as the concert ensembles, there is an orchestra. It's rather small, but it's nice, and the conductor is like a very famous pianist, actually, once upon a time. There is a wind symphony, which is the top wind band. There is the symphony band, which is the second wind band. And those two are generally full of music majors, but regardless of your major, you can apply for you can audition for any of the ensembles. And then there's the campus bands, which are the Boomer and Sooner bands, and those only happen in the spring. So typically Pride students do the marching band in the fall, and then if they still want to do band, they typically do the campus bands in the spring, or they audition and get into the top ensembles. The overall quality of the ensembles is quite good. I will say it's above average. It's nothing like super prestigious or stellar, but you will play very awesome music like Mahler, or in the orchestra, or Maslenka, or Hindemith. Like, you will play the stuff. It's a high level group. I also like how we do a lot of creative and out of the box things, like memorizing our pieces and standing around the audience and performing it, or doing recording sessions, or conductor residencies, or guest soloists, guest artists, like from the President's Zone. Like that, those have been really fun to do. There's also like sensory friendly concerts where they bring out students that need a different type of environment to enjoy music because of like special needs, and so that we provide that for them. We have like light shows, and like we do a lot. There's a lot of really cool things that the ensembles do. Okay, next I am going to share a typical schedule that I had for each year of my time here. So freshman year, here's my fall semester schedule. Pride, you will see, takes up a lot of the evenings, and it takes up like pretty much every Saturday, so just be aware of that. Also, you just have a lot of classes, I'm not gonna lie. You have oral skills, music theory, history, core classes if you didn't do that in high school. So keep in mind, in this schedule, you also will have core classes if you did not do these ahead of time like I did. I think there's like an online class there, I don't know, it's been a while. And if you're music education, you'll have the education classes. If you're a performance major, you won't have those, so you'll have more time to practice. But I will say, time management, you will learn time management your freshman year, or else you're done. Like, as you can see, there's not a lot of holes in the schedule, so you have to find time. Mornings, evenings, nights, random times in between classes. It's a bit difficult to find time to practice, let alone have a social life. So that is my warning to you. Spring semester, no pride, that really helps, but more classes. So in general, freshman and sophomore year especially are just very, very, very full. I forgot to mention in freshman year, you have to do freshman year experience classes, which are like understanding world perspectives, I think was one of them, or being an OU student. I don't know. They're just kind of a waste of time a little bit, but you gotta take them. Okay, sophomore year, here are my schedules. Still pretty packed. Still gotta do music theory and oral skills and history and all those. Still gotta do, as an education major, I still had to do all the education classes. I think this is when I started to do the general education classes. Yeah, I think that's when I did. It's pretty busy, pretty dang busy. Junior year is when things start to relax because you no longer have to do oral skills or music theory. Unless you're a performance major, you have to do one extra music theory class if you're a performance major. I think it's forms and analysis. So things start to kind of relax. But music theory classes, music education classes are in full effect. You're often observing at different schools and traveling a lot. But it is just easier to find time to practice. Or like what I didn't do Pride in my junior or senior year because you only have to do it 2 years if you're a music education major. I found neighboring schools to be marching tech at. So that filled up a lot of my time as well. Senior year, fall semester, chill, pretty dang chill. Not a lot of classes, just doing my thing. I had to take language classes because I didn't freshman, sophomore year, which I don't regret, to be honest. Like, I really don't. But classes, there's not a lot of classes. I could fill it with things like practicing and ensembles and all of that stuff. Senior year, spring semester, all I'm doing right now is student teaching. So I have one class a week, which is capstone, which is when we kind of come in and we just talk about our experiences and just to talk a little bit more about teaching in general, because we're getting close to actually doing the thing. So yeah, I'm student teaching all day long, every day, just doing basically a full-time job. So yeah, so these are what the typical weeks look like in each semester. Freshman, sophomore year, it's definitely a front-loaded experience. Freshman, sophomore year can be pretty rough, but it gets easier, especially when you learn time management. Okay, now to talk a little bit more about the freshman experience, especially with housing and meals. So the housing is kind of crazy expensive, and they force you to do it unless you live like a certain mile radius away from the school. But I will say, I 100% recommend you live in the dorms. Even if you live close enough to not live in the dorms, I 100% recommend. You will learn so much about yourself, about living with others, like with strangers. You will be more in the community and in the bubble, and you'll be closer to activities and all, like, it'll just be easier, I promise. I really think you should do it if you can afford it. There's multiple dorms. There's the cheaper option, which is what I was in. I was in the couch dorm. They're like these huge towers. They share a bathroom with another room, so like you have suite mates. And then there's a couch cafeteria that's nearby that honestly pretty fire, I will say. There's the newer ones. I think they built a new one recently that's more expensive for sure, but probably has private bathrooms and more apartment style. I don't know a lot about it, but there's also the Headington Hall, which I think is reserved for like athletes, and then there's Cross, which is the more popular, more fancier apartment style dorm, which will have private bathrooms, private rooms, etc. But honestly, I really did not mind my dorm life experience, even though I was in the cheapest one and I had a roommate like literally in the same room. It was a vibe. Maybe I was just lucky with my roommate, but I think in general the facilities are nice. There's ping pong in the downstairs area. The general areas are very nice, and all that. Now the meal plans, expensive. They're so expensive. Like honestly, it's annoying, but it is convenient. And if you are a music major, I will say I would prioritize doing more meal points than meal swipes. So meal swipes are, I think each swipe is worth like $11, and you can do like 8 swipes a week, so that's 8 meals a week with that plan. But if you're in the music building a lot, which you will be, your only nearby place to use swipes is the union, and the student union only accepts swipes at a certain time frame. And not gonna lie, it's hard to find time to eat, especially your freshman sophomore year, and that time frame does not fit with the meal swipes time frame very well. So I would prioritize having more points, and points are just like each point is $1 or something. I don't know, but points can be used at any time, and also like anywhere in terms of the union or the cafeteria, the couch cafeteria. So or any of the dining halls. So yeah, get tons of meal points. I think the meal plan I did was like, I think 6 swipes a week, and then like 700 meal points a semester. It was something like that. That way you can eat at any time, and you can kind of just snack. You just have to be careful about how many points you use. Okay, parking. As a freshman, you'll get like dorm parking. Typically, please don't drive to the parking garage that's next to Catlett, the music school. Like leave that for the commuters, because you can take a shuttle. There's like shuttles that go around the dorms and that area, and they will take you to the music school, and it's quite nice. I did it, it was fine. And parking is a pain in the butt at OU, and as it is in a lot of big state schools. So please do not take our parking. Anyways, the parking is expensive. You pretty much have to get a pass, and the passes are like $500, $600 a year, which is kind of crazy. So just be aware of that. Once you're outside of the housing or the dorm life, you will not get a housing permit anymore. You'll get a commuter's permit, because you'll probably either move back home or get an apartment. The commuter permit has different parking areas, like in the garage, but parking is just a pain in the butt, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, back on housing. Yeah, you'll typically get an apartment or like a house with friends. Apartment prices typically go from, like, my cheapest apartment price was like $425 a month, not including bills, so pretty good. And then I've seen people pay up to like $700 a month for like the nicer options. Houses can be in the cheaper range, but they're not pre-furnished, so just be careful about that. But in general, living costs in Oklahoma is not crazy, so that's kind of a plus. Okay, let's talk pricing and scholarships. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I will tell you what I do know. OU is expensive. It's one of the more expensive schools in Oklahoma, and for out of state, it will be even more expensive. And what will really get you is not the tuition, the fees will. The fees are like, they're getting higher, but they're like over $8,000. So even if you have your tuition covered, please be aware of the fees. And also your freshman year, the dorms was like, I think my semester was like $11,000 for the dorms and the meal plan. So just something to be aware of. Scholarships include academic scholarships. So I had a really high GPA and ACT score, so I got full tuition covered. There are music scholarships that you will get after you audition. You kind of just get automatically put into the system for music scholarships, and the professors will dish out the money that they are allotted accordingly to how you do in your audition. But there are also additional music scholarships that you can apply for. There's this thing called CASH scholarships, CASH, and that one it stands for like Central Association something, I don't know, it stands for something, but those are other scholarships that you can apply for. So if you are a child of a military person, you might qualify for this scholarship, and you can write a 500-word essay about how that affects your life, and then they might give you $1,000. That's what those are. So there's just a bunch of like smaller scholarships that have specific requirements, like based on your heritage or what you're good at or what you've been involved in, stuff like that. I recommend doing those because a lot of people don't get around to it because it's a lot of essays, but sit down and do it, because I have made probably a little over $5,000 every year just from CASH scholarships. There's also neighboring competitions that give out prizes. So like the Ladies Music Club, I think I got like $1,000 from that. Or the OU, like they have some competitions, like solo competitions that have cash prizes. So yeah, there's like little like opportunities, but In general, like in terms of scholarships, it's very dependent on the situation of the studio that you are applying for, like if they need people. Also dependent on how well you play and on how much the professor can give you. Like if they have an assistantship, if you're a master's student, or if they have a lot of money because they don't have a lot of people coming in and all that. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the culture and community of OU, the music school especially, which is like my favorite part of coming here. The people here are so nice. I don't know if it's an Oklahoma thing or if it's whatever, but you will find people for you. There are people that are into all sorts of things, from partying to just chilling and relaxing, but in general, everyone gets along with each other. And although it's a kind of a bigger music school of like 500 people, it literally feels like a family. Like you are stuck with these people at all times, and they will be with you life and death, man. There's like very supportive staff, very supportive just events around the area, around the music school. What else? It is a huge sports school, so we're very good at football, we're very good at gymnastics, maybe basketball. I don't know, there's like random sports that we're really good at. So in terms of the overall school community, it's very sports centered. I'm not a huge sports fan, but I'm not gonna lie, the hype is pretty cool. Game day Fridays are pretty hype. Like when you go to Campus Corner, all the bars are like lit up, and there's parades and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. I would definitely recommend going to a football game at some point, especially if you're in the Pride, you will go to a football game. But yeah, the overall just community, I think, is a very big plus of OU. Like you will fit in. Like it's just so welcoming and not at all pretentious or anything, and everyone's very supportive of each other. It's a very, very, very nice environment. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, that's pretty much it. I mean, OU is honestly a very slept on school. I think there's a lot of high quality education and performance there. There's some incredibly strong studios and students. The environment, the college town, and the campus are just gorgeous and like just not overbearing or anything. I think it's just a very nice community. The people are so nice, and I think that's a really big plus for that. It's just honestly a great place to be. I think that, every college has their cons and a lot of people have their complaints, but you will find those complaints everywhere, like not finding a practice room or whatever. But in general, I have had an amazing time at OU. So I hope that this video was helpful, and if you have more questions, then comment down below and I can answer them. I will be doing another video on just general advice on being a music major, so look out for that. But yeah, that's OU.